Good morning, John. Since we've been talking a lot about like hope and forgiveness and stuff, I want you to know that in the beginning of this video, it's going to feel like we're headed to a dark place, but it is going to turn around halfway through, I promise. Recently, I saw this rather innocuous headline on foxnews.com. A guy had made a modular device that turns electricity, water, and carbon dioxide into gasoline, or at least some kind of fuel that can be burned by gasoline engines. And this is great. Not the first time that we've demonstrated air-to-fuel technology, certainly less efficient than a large plant would be, but maybe useful in off-grid situations. That's how I read the article. Here is a niche solution for niche problems, which is one of the things that we do as humans. But because I wanted to be sad, I did scroll down to read the comments. Very clever, but IMO of no practical value. We have thousands of years of oil and gas in our own country if you are not taken in by the climate crisis hoax scam. You easily see that this device likely uses more energy than it produces. Fossil fuel is the biggest lie going. Petroleum is a product of the Earth's crust and mantle action. I'm guessing it takes more energy to make a gallon than the energy it will create when burned. Yeah? Good guess. I promise you, whoever breaks conservation of energy will be a bigger story than some little jar of gasoline. I mean, the thing that this video is about is climate change, but I do want to mention that it is strange how many of these people see the first law of thermodynamics as something that we just haven't yet happened to overcome yet. But regardless, these comments all suggested variously that fossil fuels are not bad for the Earth, climate change is fake, and also fossil fuels are manufactured by the Earth, and so there's no reason to think that we'll ever run out. And if you are like me, and I think that most people are like me, you would look at this and you would think all Fox News viewers would think this way, and also all Republicans would think this way, and also half of Americans would think this way. This is how we work. If we imagine them as a group, then we also imagine that they all believe the same things, and we also believe that the things they believe are the things we hear their representatives say. But I've got news for you. Reality breaks at every single one of those steps, especially the last one. If you think that the ideas of a group of people that are reaching you are representative of that group of people, you are not understanding how the information ecosystem works. Because the biggest thing that decides whether an opposition point of view reaches you is that it is crazy. An in-group is much more likely to expose you to out-group ideas that are easy to refute. This is not a surprise. Everyone would expect this. But that's what happened, and so you are mostly only ever exposed to the worst versions of your opposition's ideas. But this is a very hard thing to keep in your mind all the time, and around 5 years ago, I saw a graph that changed my life forever. And now I'm going to show it to you, and I hope it changes your life forever too. This is a graph of people who are extremely or very sure that climate change is happening on the top line, and people who are extremely or very sure it isn't happening on the bottom. For nearly 2 decades, the percentage of Americans who are committed climate skeptics has been pretty consistently below 10%. Likewise, if you ask Americans whether global warming is happening, roughly 4/5 will say yes. The reason this graph changed me is not because I'm happy that it turns out lots of Americans agree that global warming is real. Because while that is nice to know, it also comes along with the reality that despite that fact, we are not doing a great job of adapting to that reality. It didn't change me because I got like a useful piece of data. It changed me because this did not align with my perceived understanding of the situation. If you had asked me before I saw this graph, I would have told you that probably 50% of people in America thought that climate change is a scam or a hoax. The actual situation is, get this, complex, with lots of people being unsure and even more people having other concerns that are making it so that they just aren't very focused on climate change. It would be so easy to take those comments from Fox News and share them without any of this context and see, look at how crazy these people are. And what many people would understand by these people is half of the country. And then you move on through the world with the idea in your head, I guess that is what we're up against. But if you believe that, you are, one, fighting the wrong fight every day. You think there's a bunch of people who are impossible to convince, so you're not trying to convince them, when actually the situation is mostly they're convinced, they're just not convinced that it is the thing that we need to be concentrating on right now because they're dealing with some other problem like the price of eggs at the grocery store. So one, you're caught fighting the exact wrong fight, and two, you're fighting it with the weight of despair tied around your neck. If we could say this in the fewest words possible, it would be something like, with today's information ecosystem, it is very easy to believe that 50% of people hold the views of the most extreme 10% of them. Or maybe if we wanted to state it as like the cable news fallacy, it would be the mistaken belief that the most vocal or visible members of a group represent that group as a whole. And it is no use to be weighed down by a world that isn't actually this one. This one's hard enough as it is. And I know this is a problem, because every time I talk about something with some amount of nuance, people will come at me and say there's no winning those people over. And who are those people? They're not simple. They're not unified. They're not monolithic. And 4/5 of them think that climate change is real. And very few of them are committed climate skeptics. If we think there's no winning people over, then that huge group of, yeah, I think it's probably a problem, but I don't know if it's the right problem to be addressing right now, that group just completely gets ignored. And then we have to ask ourselves, is the way that we are behaving bringing those people in or alienating them from us? The cable news ecosystem, the algorithmic news ecosystem, they both benefit when we believe this fallacy. But you know who doesn't benefit? Anybody else. John, thank you for your lovely video this week. I'll see you on Tuesday.